what is it that we're trying to keep secure? We obviously must keep data secure, and that might be in the form of design files or databases or source code files. If someone can take source code, then they can easily compile it for their own program and use it for their own benefit. There is also software protection. If an intruder gets in and changes the configuration of a software, then it can cause a great deal of problems. So we must protect against software misconfiguration. We must also protect against physical abuse in our system and also transmission. So you can see it is an extremely difficult task to try and protect against data, secure software, physical and transmission. So we are IT specialists, and it is our goal to secure systems against external parties. For us to be able to do this, we need to understand the methods that someone might use. And it's important to remember that we can have many different types of intruders, each with different types of budgets. One of the most common methods that is used in intruding into a network is called IP spoofing. With IP spoofing, an intruder gets an IP address which is allowed to transverse into the firewall. This will typically happen when a user knows that the other IP address is not being used and can get into the network. It can also happen in a local network. If someone is able to connect their computer onto the network and then choose an address of a node which isn't being used, they can connect onto it. So it is important in a network to make sure that users cannot change their IP address. Another technique that can be used by an intruder is called packet sniffing. On many networks, the data packets that are traveling along the networks can be easily viewed by anyone connecting onto the network. As we'll find out when we look at switches, this cannot happen in a switch. So if possible, devices and networks should connect through switches rather than hubs. Another typical attack is known as the password attack. Most of us use passwords which can be easily remembered by us. They are typically our first name, the name of our spouse, and so on, or the car that we drive. They're thus easy to predict if a person knows the other person. We also typically take passwords that are standard words. So if someone wanted to determine a password, they basically do not have to run all the combinations of letters from the alphabet. They can take the words from the standard alphabet and try each one in turn. Another problem that used to happen in the past is, and still is, a shared library attack. Programs typically use a library. At one time, when a program was written, it was required that some of the code was taken from a fixed library, which had certain software routines in them. If an intruder got into those libraries, then they could replace their code with the standard code. And an example of this could be that anything that was sent to a remote network connection would also be sent to the intruder at the same time. These days, more common, we have dynamic libraries, which are called into the program whenever they're required. For example, there is a DLL on Microsoft Windows, which is used whenever network communications is required. There's another one which is called in whenever any graphical communications is required. If an external party was to get in and modify any of those dynamic libraries, then they can make it look as if they're still working, but communications could be sent to the other device. A typical attack in the past was a virus which took the TCP/IP stack and replaced it with its own TCP/IP stack. And then what it did was that it sent a copy of all the communications to a destination address. So it is important to keep all the DLLs and libraries under a secure place, because these type of attacks can be invisible to the user and very difficult to find. One of the most difficult attacks, though, to guard against is social engineering attacks. With a social engineering attack, an intruder will typically just ask another user for their password, and the other user will typically give that password in confidence. What methods can be used to overcome this? Well, obviously firewalls are an important device.